Hello everyone and welcome to the Captain's video blog. I don't know. We are Wednesday, I think, July the 20th. It's like 1:40, 45. I'm not sure. Um, let's do a quick recap of yesterday's episode of SmackDown, which had the draft. So there were 30 picks on TV, and then there were I'm gonna say that way, but there was supposed to be 30 other picks on the draft center, which was exclusive to the network, but there actually were only 29, with one notable undrafted being Heath Slater, which means that the social outcasts are as good as over. So the draft was there were some interesting picks, like um, having Finn Balor drafted to Raw, but at a very high spot. Like I think he was the second Raw pick, the first being Seth Rollins, who everyone on the Raw management thought he would be the WWE champion at the end of the night, but Dean Ambrose remained the WWE champion. So Seth is probably not taking, nor Roman Reigns, the title at Battleground, because both Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns are on Raw. Dean Ambrose is on SmackDown. He's the face of the show. He's the WWE champion. Um, so yeah. One person that I thought that for sure would be drafted was Bailey, but I think that her not being drafted on Tuesday was, just growing up the expectations for her probable debut at Battleground. Everyone, since she hasn't been picked at the draft, everyone kind of expects her to be Sasha's surprise partner. Not too sure about that. Um, so yeah, apparently there's not much for the WWE tag team titles. Um, I mean, that would be understandable since there are more teams on SmackDown than on Raw. Well, I mean, more teams that are interesting because on Raw there's like the Dudley Boys, and there's the New Day, but there's also the Dudley Boys and who else? I'm not sure. While on SmackDown it's pretty stacked. There's American Alpha, huge pop. I thought that it was like pre-recorded audio, but then I remembered, oh no, it's live. Like there were a couple of pops that I had to second guess myself over the possibility of it being just amplified audio, like the pop for the crossface chicken wing that made Darren Young and Zack Ryder win the tag match against The Miz and Rusev. Oh yeah, and Rusev is on Raw. Uh, Zack Ryder is on SmackDown, but Zack isn't winning anything in solo because Mojo Rawley has been drafted to SmackDown. I mean, Mojo Rawley. I mean, okay, I guess that it's to recreate the hype bros on SmackDown, but from NXT, anyone else that's not a main eventer could have been drafted. Like I don't know, Elias Sampson. That's the top of my head. Um, uh, Mojo Rawley is just like, hey, I'm there. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if people were expecting huge draft picks like Samoa Joe and Nakamura and Austin Aries and who else? I don't know, anyone else that could be in the title picture, basically. Um, well, they are wrong because, well, first it couldn't be Samoa Joe because he's the champion, and he hasn't had the chance to defend against anyone but Finn Balor and Rhino on tonight's episode of NXT. Uh, so that would be dumb. You can draft Nakamura because he's pretty much the face of NXT since he beat both Sami Zayn and Finn Balor. And I mean, the victory against Finn Balor was pretty much Finn's swan song on NXT, so it would have been done for that match as good as it was to be, basically both saying goodbye to NXT. I mean, of course, Shinsuke Nakamura is more than ready to go to the main roster, but NXT is going to become the third touring brand, and as such, you need some star power to get it going. And if you have only the champion and some upper mid carders, that's not gonna be great. But that's kind of the way they're going with the women's division on NXT because Nia Jax has been drafted to Raw, and both Alexa Bliss and Carmella have been drafted to SmackDown, which means that Nia Jax probably losing to Asuka if she gets another title match. I think that it's going to be interesting to see where the women's division in NXT is going, since now there's only the other ones, the ones who usually job on NXT TV. There's a fucking bug. It's pissing me off. That's kind of the problem when it rains and you want to create a bit of airflow in your house to have a little fresh air. You also make every fucking creature in existence getting Jesus Christ. That's something I'm not swatting because it stinks when you swat it. Anyway. So yeah. Other interesting draft picks. Interesting because I don't really understand why they were on TV. Natalia to SmackDown, Neville to Raw. I guess that it's because Chris Jericho has been drafted to Raw on TV, Big Show has been drafted to Raw on TV. And I guess, Neville is going to be one of the faces of the Cruiserweight division. There's no doubt about that. But he officially hasn't started wrestling again. His first match back he was on a house show. Becky Lynch has been drafted to SmackDown, which means that Charlotte is on Raw, Dana Brooke is on Raw. The women's division is something complicated. Like you have the great, the everyone likes them. They are on SmackDown, and then they are the ones with more mixed reactions. Say for Sasha Banks on Raw. Like Sasha Banks is the only one to be unequivocally liked. So yeah, that's kind of strange. Some head scratchers, in the draft picks. So yeah, the Ascension is on SmackDown. The Lucha Dragons are both on one brand. What else? It's really complicated to make a recap of the draft. I'm not sure. Obviously, not a very unforgettable edition of SmackDown, but sometimes it's like that. You have the booking of a house show, and one thing that's supposed to take the most time that just isn't quite there. Like the draft was definitely interesting. But it's also not shaking things up. Like, oh, it's the new era. Like, probably the only thing that I've noticed that is important is the new men's teams, like on SmackDown it will be Mauro Ranallo, JBL, and David Otunga. Okay. And on Raw it will be Michael Cole, Baron Saxon, and Corey Graves, which means that it's probably going to be interesting. Like, it's a known fact that Michael Cole is the one who feeds Corey Graves and Tom Phillips the lines on NXT. Now it's going to be Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon has a different way of seeing commentary because he has to keep in mind that he has to pander to a much more diverse audience than the audience of NXT. So it's going to be interesting to see how the commentary changes. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting few weeks after the draft. I mean, Battleground is going to be one show where you have to keep an eye out for the team dynamics, the brand dynamics. Definitely NXT, where I think that if kayfabe is still something, William Regal should address the people who have been drafted tonight on NXT, as soon as the show starts. But yeah, Monday Night Raw, the first Raw and the first SmackDown after Battleground will be very interesting. Like, we will have the start of really something new. Like, it didn't feel at all like anything on Battleground was going to be the big story. And not even the draft felt that big. Maybe because they kind of wanted to hammer the point home, but it felt not really natural. Also, Marseille drew against Ajax Amsterdam, and Zakarin won the stage, the last before the Alps, because it's Switzerland, but it's climbs, but it's not really the Alps. Kind of a weird bias. But anyway, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.